Yes, Navani, I'm ready. Thank you. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, Dhanvat Pranama, Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskutya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiraet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. Today we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 15, Instructions for Civilized Human Beings. Text 31. My dear king, in a scared and holy places of pilgrimage, one should select a place on which to perform yoga. The place must be level and not too high or low. There one should sit very comfortably, being steady and equipoised, keeping his body straight, and thus began chanting the Vedic Pranava. Text 32 and 34, while continuously staring at the tip of the nose. A land yoga practice the breathing exercise through the technical means known as Puraka, Kumbhaka, and Rekaka, controlling inhalation and exhalation and then stopping them both. In this way, the yogi restricts his mind from material attachments and gives up all mental desires. As soon as the mind, being defeated by lusty desires, drifts toward feelings of sense gratification, the yogi should immediately bring it back and arrest it within the course of his heart. Text 34. When the yogi regularly practices in this way, in a short time his heart becomes fixed and free from disturbances like a fire without flames or smoke. Text 35. When one's consciousness is uncontaminated by material lusty desires, it becomes calm and peaceful in all activities. For one is situated in eternal blissful life. Once situated on that platform, one does not return to materialistic activities. Text 36. One who accepts the sannyasa orders gives up the three principles of material activities in which one individuals in the field of household life, namely religion, economic development, and sense gratification. One who first accepts sannyasa but then returns to return to such material activity, it is to be called a Vantasi, or one who eats his own vomit, he is indeed a shameless person. Text 37. Sannyasis who first consider that the body is subject to death when it will be transformed into a stool, worms, or ashes, but who again give importance to the body and glorify it as the self, are to be considered the greatest rascals. Texts 38 and 34. It is abominable for a person living in the Grihastha ashrama to give up the regulative principles, for a brahmachari not to follow the brahmachari's vows while living under the care of the Guru, for a vanaprastha to live in the village and engage in its so-called social activities, or for a sannyasi to be addicted to sense gratification. One who acts in this way is to be considered the lowest renegade. Such a pretender is bewildered by the eternal energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and one should either reject him from any position or taking compassion upon him. Teach him is, if possible, to resume his original position. Text 40. The human form of the body is meant for understanding the self and the supreme self, the supreme personality of Godhead, both of whom are transcendently situated. If both of them can be understood when one is purified by advanced knowledge, For what reasons and for whom does a foolish, greedy person maintain the body for sense gratification? Thank you so much, dear devotees. I can stop here, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you so much, Radha Mataji, for reading today, translations today. We'll offer brief prayers and we'll continue. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gnananjana Sharakaya Chekshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarini जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदम हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Yeah, so let us discuss this section. We're in the almost last few verses of this chapter, 15th chapter, which is ending the entire 7th canto also. So in another 2-3 days, we'll start the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. It's overall in 7th canto, we is divided into two broad sections. One is how a pure devotee like Prahlad Maharaj, how is his devotional service? That is the first section we saw. First 10 chapters of 7th canto, and the last 5 chapters are focusing on Varnashram Dharma. Those who are not at pure devotional stage yet, but how do they cultivate with the bhakti, with the cultivation of varnashram dharma, like different varnas, by staying in particular varna and in particular ashrama, how we can cultivate and grow in spiritually. That is what is being discussed in the last 5 chapters. As we've been knowing, understanding, the Sukadeva Goswami is narrating this conversation between Narada Muni and Yudhishthira Maharaj. And so for Narada Muni gave so many instructions about different varnas and different ashramas. In this section, we're hearing more about how somebody like most of us were practicing grihastha life, practicing married life with children, how we can progress further in spiritual life. Specifically, this section is focusing on how a grihastha can progress in liberation like that. So, in focusing back on this section now, we're going from 31 to 40 verse today. Let me go to that 31st verse first. Yeah. So, one thing I wanted to emphasize before we go into this section is overall, Narada Muni is giving instructions for somebody who is not yet having full faith in devotion service, who's not practicing devotion service as the main focus of the life, like that. Also, but Srila Prabhupada in the purports is giving instructions for both people who have not taken up Krishna consciousness yet, and people who have taken Krishna consciousness also. How? So Sri Prabhupada is elaborating the purport how to utilize Narada Muni's instructions wherever we are. If we didn't bother to take Krishna consciousness seriously, why it's important to take it? And if you already taken up Krishna consciousness like us, but how can we be more serious and sincere in taking up Krishna consciousness further? That's also Prabhupada is describing this purpose. So, going to the 31st verse. So here is describing, Narada Muni is describing that how in a sacred and holy place of pilgrimage, one should select a proper place to perform yoga, and then how one should sit properly, how one should have a body straight like that, and then begin chanting the Vedic Pranav mantra. Pranav mantra means Omkara. All the Vedic mantras, many Vedic mantras start with bija syllable like Om. So this is important for our devotees to understand a little bit. Prabhupada is writing in the purport also, the same point. Like Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, it's starting with Bija Mantra Om. That means these Vedic mantras we cannot chant anywhere and any time and in any circumstance. For example, I cannot chant in the bathroom these Vedic mantras. So instead of giving benefit, it will be offensive. It will be not favorable for our growth of bhakti. However, at the same time, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is this you can chant anytime at any place also. Whether it's in bathroom, whether it's in the bed, whether it's on the chair, whether it's we're driving to home, driving to office, doesn't matter. We can chant. Of course, not the 16 rounds we don't chant while driving, but like that, there's no time and place and purity required for chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Because Hare Krishna Mantra itself will purify us. So, even though Hare Krishna Mahamantra is also given in the Upanishad, but because it's not starting from uh, the Vedic Bija Mantra, that is why it can be chanted anywhere like that. So, that is the beauty of the Hare Krishna Mantra. Prabhupada writes about in the purport also. And Prabhupada also comments how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Sikshastakam says, Niyamina, Niyamita Smaranena Kalaha. There are no particular injections regarding uh, place or time in chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra like that. So that is a benefit of Hare Krishna Mahamantra for everyone. Whereas we know, for example, for chanting a Gayatri Mantra, a person should be having Brahmanical qualities and person should be situated in mode of goodness. Then actual effect will come for the Gayatri Mantra. Otherwise, even if they chant Gayatri Mantra, the effect is not so much basically. So similarly, but unlike that, Hare Krishna Mahamantra is very potent and prescribed in Vedas for all classes of people to be chanted at any time and any place. So that is the significance of this particular sloka Prabhupada is describing. Of course, at one level, these verses are describing the Ashtanga Yoga process, how one needs to get liberated from Grihastha life like that. That is another angle. That's the original angle Narada Muni is describing these things in. But Prabhupada is covering what we as practicing devotees also can take from these verses right now like that. And as we go on, Prabhupada also starts to describe how some of these practices can be applied in bhakti, number one, and actually how bhakti practices can help the goal, whatever these practices are trying to achieve, like control of the mind, control of senses, how bhakti can easily help us to get there also. So that's a nice thing Prabhupada is also describing. In this purport, 31st verse purport, Prabhupada also ends the purport with how sitting straight is helpful for us devotees while chanting also. Not only the yogis who are Ashtanga yogis who are going to the forest, but it's also helpful to sit straight in chanting. Why? Because if I sit like this in a slumbery way, then I might become sleepy while chanting. But if you sit straight like this, then it will help in focusing on our chanting instead of going to sleep. In fact, many devotees prescribe this method, including uh, whenever we go to japa retreats to improve the chanting also. This is one of the things described about how to take care of the body. For example, to so to sit straight doesn't mean that we are so rigid that we cannot focus on chanting the holy name. We sit straight enough that we can still focus on the holy name. And initially, it's an austerity because we're not used to sitting straight. So initially, it's an austerity to practice sitting straight. But slowly, we'll get practice of that also. So the idea is that when you sit straight, the lungs are able to breathe properly. That is why sleep goes away. Otherwise, we can stay alert basically. That is the practice being described here. I was attending recently the Holy Name Immersion Retreat with His Holiness Satchidananda Swami Maharaj in the last weekend, where he was also emphasizing the principle of aligning the body, aligning the mind, and aligning the soul to practice chanting well like that. So so at the body level, it's important to sit straight and also pronounce the holy name, pronounce the mantras clearly and hear them clearly. That's at the bodily level. Of course, at the mind level, we bring the mind back wherever it's going from. That is described in the next verses. So in the 32, 33 verse, Narada Muni is continuing his description of the Ashtanga Yoga process. Remember, Ashtanga Yoga process has yama, niyama, that means rules and regulations. Then pranayama comes. Pranayama means regulation of the breathing, how we inhale, how we exhale, and how we stop breathing for some time. All that practices are part of the pranayama, which is practice of Ashtanga Yoga also. So that is what is describing in 32, 33 verse. But for what purpose they are doing that pranayama? So that they can control the mind from material attachments, and so that they can give up all material desires. That is the focus of a Ashtanga yogi. That is the purpose they are doing pranayama, not for fun or not for some spiritual reason beyond like that. It's primarily to control the material desires and to restrict the mind from material attachments like that. Why? Why they should do that? Because if mind is fully in material desires and defeated by lusty desires, uh, then it will go towards the feelings of sense gratifications only. Then the yogi, such a yogi, should, whenever the mind goes to sense gratification desires, he should bring it back and arrest it in the core of the heart. Why are they trying to do that? By controlling the mind, slowly they'll become to the peaceful stage. Slowly they can see the super soul in the heart. That's where the progression of Ashtanga Yoga is happening. So Prabhupada in the purport helps us to understand how a bhakti yogi can take these principles and can achieve the same perfection very easily like that. So what is Prabhupada is describing? That bhakti yogi practicing you bhaktas like that, practicing devotees like us, we can actually practice focusing our mind on Krishna, how to please Krishna, how to serve Krishna, how to serve devotees like that. So when we're focusing on that, then naturally our mind will become controlled. Oh, how come that is possible? Because our Krishna is entering our mind. So when Krishna is on our mind, then there's no place for Maya. Like how when light is there, there's no place for darkness like that. So that way, it's very easy for a bhakti yogi to do the control of the mind also. But we find it very difficult now. So what do we need to do? We need to focus on our practice of bhakti. Why am I doing this practice? Am I doing it for my benefit or am I doing for Krishna's pleasure? Like that, we need to contemplate and apply in the Krishna conscious proper processes that we already starting practicing right now. Whether it's chanting, whether it's hearing, whether it's deity worship, whether it's doing service at the temple, whether it's doing service at the home for deities, where we're doing cooking. We need to always question the motivation why we are doing, and then try to bring that motivation closer to for pleasure of Krishna like that. So that way, then our mind can be easily controlled because of Krishna consciousness and because of the mercy of Krishna. In fact, in Nectar of Devotion, um, Srila Prabhupada writes in the first verse that talks about manovegam, control of the mind. Prabhupada writes two broad categories of help how we can control the mind. One is to focusing on the lotus feet of Krishna. Number one, that means that's a literal statement also, focusing on lotus feet of Krishna. Second thing is by thinking about how to do whatever service we are doing, how to improve our service to Krishna. That is the two ways we can control the mind. Prabhupada describes in that Nectar of Instruction, verse 1. So basically, for a yogi, they need to do this hard pranayama process. But before they do pranayama, they need to do very difficult yama, niyama, rules and regulations. Then only they can come to pranayama stage. So then they need to control this breathing by sitting properly like that for a long time. But for devotees, we have simple process that is given to us by acharyas and shastra and guru. We follow that, and that will help us easily control the mind and senses. Now, the result of practicing pranayama like that to control the mind is given in text 34. He's saying, in a short time, His heart becomes fixed and free from disturbances, like a fire without flames or smoke. Generally, if there is some smoke coming, that means that the fire is not perfect yet. So fire is in the making. Especially when the fire is getting about to get started, lot of smoke comes, little fire comes. But as the fire increases, smoke reduces, and finally smoke goes away. Similarly, when a yogi practices these things to control the mind, finally his body becomes calm and peaceful and free from disturbance, like that is being described here. So, so for those who are not very practicing yoga, then this step by step process of controlling the mind to become free from agitation of material desires is given Prabhupada's writing in purport. But if you fix our mind on lotus feet of Krishna, the mind naturally becomes peaceful, like that. So how do we apply these things when we are hearing as practicing devotees? We can apply it at multiple levels. One level is we already discussed how we need to bring the focus of pleasing Krishna in our practices. That is one thing we brought up. Second thing we need to see is how much I'm peaceful currently in my practice of devotion service in my life today. Am I being peaceful? I'm being a very agitated, anxious always. That is a test we can also do. If you're feeling anxious, more and more anxious and disturbed, we need to uh, adjust our consciousness to see, am I doing it for Krishna's pleasure? Why am I becoming anxious? And if required, we can also consult our guru or mentor also to figure out how to overcome that anxiousness and improving the positive attachment towards Krishna more and more, like that. That will help us also to adjust the practice of bhakti properly, like that. And the third aspect is same thing. I'm practicing devotion service for 2 years. I'm practicing devotion service for 5 years. I'm practicing devotion for 10 years. My material desires are reducing or my material desires are increasing. We need to test that also ourselves. Then we get the answer. Oh, my material desires are reducing. That is wonderful. That means I'm progressing in devotion service nicely, like that. And then maybe we get understanding. Oh, still I'm hankering for these material desires, still hankering, even though I'm doing bhakti. So I have some way to work on my spirituality a little bit more. So that way, my material desires will go away slowly. So that is a other aspect also. We can apply this knowledge, what we are learning from today's section of verses. In the text 35, then is further describing. Remember, previous was describing after a practice of serious yoga, that mind is little bit calm now. Now Radharani is describing when when one's consciousness is uncontaminated by material lust desires. That means material lust desires are gone totally. Then it becomes very calm and peaceful in all activities. For one is situated in eternal blissful life. Once situated on that platform, one does not really return to materialistic activities. So such Ashtanga yogi now gets situated in a Brahma Bhuta platform. That means a Brahman platform. That means a liberated platform. And so they're calm and peaceful. They're not being hankering by other material desires anymore, like that. That's a gradual progression of a Ashtanga yogi. But Prabhupada writes that um, there is a problem with this Ashtanga yogis versus Bhakta yogis. What is that? Ashtanga yogis, even they get to the Brahmabhuta stage or liberated stage, they might fall down because it's difficult to sustain that because they don't have a positive activity, positive attachment to hang on to. They don't hang on to shelter of Krishna to stay on the Brahmabhuta platform or go beyond that to transcendental platform. Whereas Bhakti yogis, practicing devotees, we can not only stay in the Brahmavita platform, but we can go beyond the modes of material nature because we're practicing devotional service with the help of Krishna. Because Krishna is there in our life, Krishna uh, can support us. Krishna can help us in our journey of devotional service to go beyond the modes, like that. So that is the benefit of practicing Bhakti Yogi, Bhakti Yoga versus Ashtanga Yoga, like that Prabhupada is describing. Prabhupada continues with that in the next several verses. But the essential theme Prabhupada is highlighting is that Ashtanga Yoga or other yoga processes are very, very difficult to achieve, especially in this age. And even if you achieve certain stage of progress, you might fall down. But in case of bhakti, we'll only go up, up and like that. Even if somebody falls down at a higher stages of bhakti, whatever bhakti they achieved, that level is not gone at all. So that is the beauty of bhakti process, number one. Number two, so bhakti process is easier compared to the Ashtanga Yoga processes, especially for this age of Kali Yuga also. Like that, those are the two key aspects Prabhupada is emphasizing in these particular purports for us. Now, text number 36. Now, interestingly, this section, so far we talked about how to achieve spiritual happiness, but this section talks about how about if somebody grows up, becomes sannyasi, but then he again goes back to materialistic household life. And that means he's renouncing this gnana, whatever knowledge he got like that. That is what is described in 36 and 37 verses like that. 36, 37, what is he saying? 36 verse specifically, if someone accepts sannyas order, they give up dharma, artha, and kama. What does that mean? They don't do ordinary religious principles, religious practices, like they don't need to do all those things like what we do. For example, Shraddha ceremony, sannyas need doesn't need to do like that. So then artha, they don't spend time to earn a living. That means they don't do a job to get money like that. They don't have a source of income like that. Sannyasis. And then kama, they don't do sense gratification. We grihasthas are engaged in regulated sense gratification, that is sanctioned, sanctified, and regulated. We discussed in one of the sessions recently. Unlike sannyasis, but sannyasis they are supposed to give up sense gratification fully. So now, if such a sannyasi who is supposed to uh, give up dharma, artha, and kama, that is sense gratification completely, again goes back to doing materialistic activities, again goes back to sense gratification, then that is chastised in the scriptures, like here in Nardamuni. He's saying such a sannyasi is called Vantasi, or one who eats his own vomit. If you vomit and then eat again, such a bad thing, right? So, such a sannyasi is compared like that. He's a shameless person like that. So, yeah. So now, how does one prevent that such a fall down like that? First of all, go from, like, human life is a life of transformation and spiritual journey. From brahmachari training, then we take regulated grostha life, then we focus on austerities for vanaprastha life, then we focused on further renunciation with sannyasa. But we should not progress from vanaprastha to sannyasi unless we give up the lusty desires like that. That is one principle. Second principle is, that means giving up the native. Second principle is, unless we have the full confidence and determination that Krishna is maintaining me, Krishna is protecting me, then one should not take up sannyas life until we do have this both of this. Why? Because if you still have the sense gratification tendencies, then you'll fall down again, which is not good. Number one, if you don't have the faith in Krishna, determination and shelter taking in Krishna, and confidence that Krishna will protect us, then we'll go back to earning money and making money and how to ensure I get food tomorrow like that. Then that's also not suitable for sannyas life like that. So, very broadly speaking, there are two things being described. One is, wherever we are, we focus on the regulations prescribed in Varnashrama that are suitable for bhakti at that stage. We need to practice them nicely. Instead of thinking I will do that higher level, don't go to the higher level. Do whatever we are supposed to do right now. Like that, number one. Number two, when we go to the next level, don't keep attached to the old level. Don't still follow dharma artha kama of the old level of grihastha when you go to sannyas life, for example. Like that, those are the two broad principles we can learn from this section like that. In fact, this is very helpful even in our growth in practice of bhakti also. For example, I've been chanting 4 rounds of Hare Krishna Mahamantra now. Now, when I grow to six rounds of Hare Krishna Mahamantra, I should not fall down to 4 again like that. So, that's a gradual, slow, and steady progress we need to make like that. That is very helpful. Okay, that is about 36th verse. 37th verse also, 37th verse is continuation. That when a sannyasi is in a bodily conception, then they cannot practice sannyasa properly. But when they understand soul conception properly, spiritual conception properly, then they will not focus on hankering for what is needed for body, lamenting for what is not there for the body like that. That is the principle that is being described in 37th verse like that. Oh, we might have talked about it, but I will mention it. I think in one of the previous classes also we talked about it. So, His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj also describes this in his biography, that small biography, Journey Home. He talks about how he had this realization that body will ultimately become stool or food for worms or become ashes like that. How is that so? One is, if the body is buried, that is eaten by worms. If the body is not buried but is thrown in the Ganges, then it is eaten by different animals, for example, or aquatics, for example, and then it will become birds, for example, and become stool only. Or if it's burned, then it becomes ashes like that. So, what is the use of this body? So, that is one direction we need to contemplate. That means this body ultimately is temporary, number one. But at the second direction, this body is useful for us. For what? For practicing spiritual life, practicing bhakti, so that we can go back to pure devotion service to Supreme Lord Krishna. So, when we understand that, we take care of the body in such a way that is helping in bhakti, and at the same time, we don't get distracted by bodily distractions that will take us away from bhakti also. So, that is the principles being described. In fact, the tomorrow's section you will hear more from Krishnaveni Prabhuji, that that essence of the teaching also tomorrow will come wonderfully. Then we'll go to the next verse, 38th, 39th verse. So 32 already. Let me see. 30th and 39th verse. Yeah, I'll briefly summarize it. 30th, 39th verse is talking about how whatever ashram we are in, whether I'm in Brahmacharya ashram, Grihastha ashram, Sannyasa ashram, or Vanapasa ashram, it's important to practice regulations for the ashram properly, like like that. So example is given and what we should not do. That's what we're emphasizing in this section. For example, Grihastha like us, they should not give up prescribed duties. So I should not imitate like sannyasi. I cannot give up family life and then say I will practice bhakti like a sannyasi. No, that's not recommended. So we should do our prescribed duties as grihastha like that. Number one. For a brahmachari, they should not give up their vows. And then vanaprastha, they should not keep on engaging in social service. They should not keep on engaging in village-related activities like that. They should be little bit remote in the sense, at least in the sense of focusing on spiritual life, focusing on spiritual progress for themselves and others in the society like that. Not again doing a social welfare activity for the body and mind like that. That is one. Similarly, sannyasi, we already discussed how they should not become addicted to sense gratification again like that. So that is what is being described in this verses. The last verse for today touches on the theme for tomorrow that Krishnaveni Prabhu will cover, which is essentially that human form of life is meant for actually cultivating self-realization, spiritual realization, for understanding who are we. We're not this body, we're a spirit soul. We're part and parcel of Krishna and servant of Krishna. And for understanding Krishna like that. Yeah, we'll pause here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Sri Prabhupada ki jai. Vanchakalpatarubhyasya Kupasindubhyacha Paditana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Thank you so much, devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, thank you.
Thank you, Mother. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Yeah.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you. Yeah, Radharani Mataji, I don't see a end button, Mataji. I can see only leave button.
Oh, is it okay?
Yeah, yes.